Squire Johnson, Vice President of the Middle Tennessee National Action Network, owner of I.M.B. Studios and Podcasts, and today we have a phenomenal Black History celebration. The National Action Network has partnered with the National African Museum of Music, TUG Youth Development, and I.M.B. Studios to bring you a powerful message about the importance of your vote. First off, I would like to thank our president, Mrs. Cheryl Huff, for all the diligence and hard work that she has put into this organization. Thank you so much, Cheryl.
You are welcome. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate you, and let's get to work.
Okay, behind me, I would like to introduce this phenomenal panel. We have a phenomenal panel of speakers who are ready to bring it to you. They are ready to bring you the passionate of voting and tell you why it's so important to vote. In the center, we have Mrs. Courtney Teasley. Courtney Teasley is the owner of the Courtney Teasley Law Firm and I.M.B.
You got it. You got it.
To my left, we have Mr. Lelann Evans. He is a campaign consultant and also owner of Our Future Voters and Political Education Company. And to my far left, I have Senior Pastor Howard Jones, Senior Pastor of Fairfield Baptist Church and also owner of Kingdom Cafe and Grill, located on Jefferson Street in the Black Business District in Nashville, Tennessee.
Amen.
Now I would like to introduce the man of the hour, Mr. Timothy Hughes of the Middle Tennessee National Action Network. Come on, Timothy. I'm so glad that you came to help us with this event. I really appreciate it, and I love you, brother.
It's an honor and a privilege to be here. Thank you so much.
Before we get started, we're going to ask Senior Pastor Howard Jones to start us off with a powerful prayer to kick off this Black History Month celebration.
Let us pray. To the most wise and holy God, we exalt you, we magnify you, declaring that you are God and you're God all by yourself. We thank you, Lord, for those who we are standing upon their shoulders. We thank you for those who have surely committed themselves, sacrificed their lives, shot down in their driveways, the mega Evans of life. We thank you for them. And I thank you for those who have the spirit, Father God, of excellence, this organization, and what you're about to do. Stir us up that we may stir up this community, that we may live and we're not going to die. It is in the mighty, matchless name of the anointing we pray, and we owe you everything. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much for that powerful prayer, Senior Pastor. Timothy, kick it out.
Kick it out, Tim.
Let's go.
Thank you so much. And it's, again, a wonderful opportunity to be here on behalf of the National Action Network. My name is Timothy Hughes. I'll be your moderator for this afternoon's conversation. We're gonna make sure that we move into this discussion in an expeditious way. But I wanted to go ahead and set some of the table here for our conversation, our discussion about voting. Of course, it is an election season. I want to remind the audience who is here assembled, and also the audience that is tuning in on live on social media, Instagram, Facebook, all of the social media channels, that it is election season. And so make sure that you are participating, if you are eligible and registered to vote, in the primary election, which is happening now. We're having early voting through the 27th of February, and Election Day is on March the 5th. We've also got elections happening in August and in November. So we're going to talk a little bit about the importance of voting, why it's necessary, why it's important. But I want to center us around a couple of very important issues. But first, just some group agreements, right? We are here to have some real conversation. So we want you to be uncensored. We want you to be able to share as much as possible about the power and the issues that are important for our community. So I want you to feel free to express yourselves in whatever way possible, but do so in a respectful manner so that everybody has an opportunity to speak and we can get to as many of the issues and questions as possible. And then finally, for those who are interested in joining and becoming more of a part of this conversation, submit your questions online. We're going to try to follow the feed, to follow the questions that may be coming in on the social media, but join us also in the work that we're doing with the Middle Tennessee National Action Network. You can find out more about Middle Tennessee Action Network online. Follow us on our social media channels as well. We're going to go ahead and get started. And since we ended with a prayer just a few moments ago, I would love to be able to give our minister here an opportunity to be able to talk about the work of the Black church and the history of the Black church and its involvement in civic education. Could you talk a little bit, Mr. Jones, Reverend Jones, about the importance of the Black church and how the Black church has played a critical role as a starting point for folks to come into the work of civic engagement, how that role is evolving as you see it?
Well, you know, when I think about the involvement of the church and how the church was the center point of making that difference in our community, I'm kind of sad today because, you know, those of the Kings and the C.T. Vivians and John Lewis's, those that really worked hard, even the Curly Magruder's, if you would, who worked very hard in the community, First Baptist Capitol Hill, and actually coming together to make that difference and organize to get our people not just registered to vote, but also getting them to the polls and then getting great candidates involved. So I would that this panel and those who are here would begin to press the church to do what the church used to do. And get back and remember what we used to do, and then we were really effective, and not just surely helping an individual pastor or bishop or person, but actually helping the masses of our people. And when we start doing that, I think we would indeed begin to see a change in Nashville. It's a tragedy when we see the likes of Tennessee State University being taken over, and that there's not an Avon Williams to stand up to raise hell with those who are trying to raise hell with us.
Right.
So the church is that powerful force that if shaken and awakened and quickened, then we could make a difference in the city tonight.
Absolutely. That's an important point. And having those historic figures to talk to, and much of the education and the history about the role of the Black church and the role of our Black leaders here in Tennessee and in Middle Tennessee specifically has been under attack as a result of some of the educational proposals that are happening in the legislature and on the local level. Could you talk a little bit about how the church was able to step in and provide spaces for freedom schools, to provide our young people with educational opportunities, and what role we as the Middle Tennessee National Action Network and other organizations can play collaboratively to coordinate with the work of the Black church?
Yeah, I think it's very critical for us to look at the history of how the church was really a part of making a difference in our community. But what flows into my mind, though, Brother Minister, is a quote that Dr. King gave, that am I actually pushing for our people to go into a building and to integrate in a house that's on fire? So if we would begin to look at what we must do as a community, we need to elect people that are going to indeed be for the community. Yes. We see some persons that have been elected and they are still in the community and working in the community. But is the preacher in the community working in the community?
Right.
You know, so we've got to begin to not just register our people to vote, but we need to take them to the polls. We need to get them to the polls. We need to endorse candidates and hold candidates accountable for serving the people. Yes. So historically, the church was it. Presently, I have to ask the real question: where is the church?
A critical question indeed. I'm going to pass on to some of the other members of the panel, but I know, Reverend, that you're going to have to facilitate a funeral in just a bit. And so we thank you, first of all, for your willingness to come and participate in this panel, for all of the dedicated work that you're doing, both with your church and at the restaurant that provides support for individuals who have had interaction with the criminal legal system, and you're doing the work. And so I just want to take the opportunity to have as a moderator, first to thank you personally for being here, but also for the work that you're doing on behalf of the community. I know the time is short. Would you give just a word of encouragement and a final word to the people before you take your leave?
Well, I believe that the church is a vital institution that we still actually halfway control. All right. We've got to be right by women in the church.
Yes.
We've got to be right by surely the economic development in the church. We've got to begin, if I can encourage our churches to continue just to stand up and begin to get our people out to vote. get them registered to vote. I ask our folk at the congregation, look, how many of you are registered to vote? How many did you vote? We do that every Sunday. Like we lift Jesus, we need to lift our people so that we can get them out to vote. And not just allowing politicians to come in just for a moment.
Come on now. Come on.
You know, and I don't want a biscuit. I want our folk to have the whole enchilada. I want the whole field. Yeah. And we got to create that field, man, to make the difference. And I believe the churches in our community, we have a church on every corner.
Every corner.
And I want to encourage folk, get back in church, get back in there, and then hold us as pastors accountable to what's going on in the community. Hold me accountable for our kids that are not being educated. Hold us accountable for if our church don't get out there to vote, man, I'm going to hold it as my fault because we've got to get out there and get our folk out there to vote. Go into the poorer communities, you know, and do a march there. And begin to encourage them and say, like, yes, here's a reason why you should vote. All right, because we need housing. All right, we need food, clothing, and shelter because we're being run out of this city.
Come on.
And so if we don't get together and start really demanding that the mayor, all right, indeed address the things that are going on in our community. Don't walk past us after we've gotten you into office and walk past us and not, you know, actually serve us. We've got to do that and hold them accountable and then call them out.
Thank you, Reverend Howard.
May I piggyback just real quick before Pastor has to leave here because I've never really I don't think I've told you thank you, but when I look at pastors and you're saying you know exactly what you're saying, where is the church, right? And all of the you know, we have people come in and they can just speak and anybody can come to our church. You know, you can't do that to the less diverse churches. They don't let us come speak and do any of that. However, when we were fighting that case trying to get those kids back from Manchester where they had taken the 5 kids, it was the hashtag Disrupt Manchester case. Afterwards, we needed a place to organize. We needed a place to talk. We needed a place to eat, to come together to be able to figure out what our next steps are strategically. And Pastor Jones was like, hey, Kingdom Cafe, y'all can take it. Go ahead, do what you need to do. And it's more of that. And you don't have to have another restaurant. It could have been his church. It could have been whatever. But coming into the real organizing and saying, hey, we know y'all got to eat. We know y'all got, you know, need a space. We know this. This is how we want to help. So appreciate that. And I appreciate your words because I think that is so true, especially hearing it from a pastor. You know, where is the church? Yes. You know, so thank you for that, Pastor.
Yeah. And we're standing on the backs of some great folks. American Baptist College, we don't talk about that college often. Right. But we need to.
For sure.
But the college has to also get into the community and begin put some boots on the ground.
Absolutely.
And I just believe we can do that. Do not abandon the church. And the people are there. They've given a lot. Our seniors have given a lot. So it's time for us to indeed sit down with our children and say, hey, this is what took place. These are the things we've done. These are the things we must do.
Pastor Jones, thank you again for being on this panel. Where can folks continue to follow you and learn more about both the work of your church and the work that you're doing at the restaurant?
Well, surely. We have 2 restaurants. I want to say that we are also we have the Snodgrass building downtown and then also on Jefferson Street and looking to open a third location. But we want to put our people to work.
Yes.
Yeah, and pay them a wage, a better wage, more than just a living wage. We need to make sure. And so Kingdom Cafe is for all of us. It's not just for Howard. It's for the community. Yes. So I'm also still a principal at Stratford High School.
Excellent.
So we can educate our kids.
We're going to cover a lot of very pressing issues.
Thank you all so very much. I want to thank you. I want to thank the panelists. I mean, you all are working hard. NAN is an amazing organization. If you're not a member of NAN, get your membership.
Yes.
And start getting into the organization. Do not sit back and do nothing and complain, but make a difference. And I think this panel and what you're doing is making that difference. So thank you so
Pastor Howard Jones, thank you so very much for being here. Pastor Jones has really given us a fervent charge, right, around the issues of economic development, around issues of education, around issues of jobs in the economy, many of the things that we're going to be talking about in today's conversation. So we want to thank Howard Jones for being here today on this very important and auspicious occasion. And for the panelists who are still here, let's have a little bit more conversation around some of the issues that Pastor Jones raised, particularly around the issue of economics. If I wanted to give this element of our conversation around economic opportunity a title, I would probably entitle it thus. We need folks to show us the money. We need to be building and sustaining Black economic power through targeted investment and civic engagement. That gives people a reason to vote. Because when we talk about the importance of voting, we can't just be about shame and blame, right? It can't just be about the fact that many of our people have died or are continuing to fight and die for the right to vote, that democracy is at stake. Those are very important and pressing issues. But what is our vested interest? So let's talk a little bit about the economics of this situation and how it is that we can demand that representatives who are supposed to be showing an interest in our concerns or have the opportunity to be able to invest in our communities in a meaningful way. I'll start with you, Courtney.
Yes.
You tell us a little bit more about the work that MF is doing and how it is that you are trying to demand accountability from the standpoint of economic investment in our communities, because we have issues that are really, really pressing, and a program of reparations is what it is that we believe is required in this moment. Can you talk about how MF points out those distinctions and is calling for accountability in that way?
Yes, thank you so much for the question. So I'm Courtney Teasley, and I practice law here in Nashville for this year's year 11, and at around year 10, I decided to retire from the practice of law, and I wanted to be able to untie my hands and be able to create to end mass incarceration, to actually help end mass incarceration. But I feel like we need more proactive and innovative solutions to it. So I created MFN, and MFN is a Black woman millennial-owned enterprise. It is a for-profit business where we create proactive products and services that disrupt the criminal justice system of oppression. And for instance, we have a book called The Easy Way to Learn Your Rights. We have a training for nonprofits that's called the DAM Advocate Training that Nan just recently went through. DAM stands for Disproportionately Affected Marginalized Minority. And so teaching them how to be more effective and proactive in their fight against mass incarceration by giving them more insider information. So for me, the economic investment. So to me, I feel like, we do a whole lot of relying on nonprofits in, these realms, right? When we're fighting in this kind of realm. But nonprofits have a lot of red tape. We have a lot of things, you have a lot of hoops you got to go through, have a lot of things that you got to make your donors happy. If you fight too hard, then they may try to take the money. You get some funding from the state. You fight too hard, they take your money. You know what I mean? I mean, you have, you've locked your hands before you even started. But I think that the less popular way that people don't look at is you can use your business, right? You can use your actual business. Think about Ben and Jerry's. Ben and Jerry's has a mission, right? They're always talking about ending mass incarceration. They're always talking about environmental justice. But, oh yeah, we got ice cream too, right? And that makes people want to shop with them more. And so they use their funds. They get way more funds than somebody working a 9 to 5 or whatever. So they got a lot of funds. So they got a lot of money to use to make a lot of change. And so for me, we get to make a better economic investment into our communities, into these organizations that are actually more proactive and are actually getting this work done, right? And you get to use your own brain to come up with different initiatives, ways that you feel like you can reach people. So your question was about the economic investment in our communities. How can we demand representatives? Well, when we have more economic power, right? When we're more in charge of what our role as citizens are, right? When we know you work for me, right? I pay taxes, okay? I live here, right? The police, you work for me. You council person, you work for me. You state official, whoever, you work for me. So instead of doing this deferring and, hey, I'm just so happy that you're in office, the respectability politics that a lot of us are taught, no, I'm holding your ass accountable. Okay? And if you won't do what you're supposed to do, then I'm going to use my organizing power, right? I'm going to use my money to fund another candidate. I'm going to show you that your seat is up for grabs because you're not doing what reflects what the community wants. You're not doing what we want done. So if I was just working, if you don't have a lot of time, if you don't have a lot of money to invest, then sometimes you feel like, I don't have anything to do. I can't do anything about it. Oh no, maybe you have influence, you have power. We're going to use our organizing abilities. We're going to get our people together and we're going to come and let you know, listen, this is your warning. You have been put on notice. If you don't stop doing A, B, C, D, F, G, these are concerns. If you don't do this, right, I am going to ensure that the next election, there's a campaign run against you. So to me, that's how I believe we should be making economic investments in the people that we believe are the best people for those roles, and then also utilizing that same kind of strategy to hold the ones that are there accountable, to let them know, hey, baby, the seat's about to come up.
That's
you know,
right. That's right. Ms. Teasley, thank you so much for giving that breakdown and that directive, because I think it's a perfect segue into what we're going to be talking about as it relates to the interactions between economics and policy, which is really where Lelann has really shown bright and has a lot of influence and experience. Lelann, could you talk a little bit about the ways in which, in this political moment, right, everybody's talking about what's happening with the presidential election and how they're focused on the top of the ballot. Could you talk a little bit about how people are not as aware of the influence of local elections? And in the local context here in the city of Nashville, we have a number of different issues that are pertaining to education. So the school board is under consideration, a number of judicial elections that are very important. Just talk about the role of policy and politics and how that has some influence in how it is that people should be earning the black vote. Because oftentimes these discussions around voting center ways in which we can engage the process, getting registered to vote, having some education around the issues that are happening. But we don't really do a very good job sometimes of connecting the dots around these local elections and how they're important.
Well, thank you first for that question. My name is Lelann Evans. I am the owner of Our Future Voters, which is a political education company. We offer classroom curriculum and community outreach to get more people involved with the political process. We teach about the position, purpose, and power of each elected office on all levels of government. And we particularly put all levels of government in there because it is all different levels of government that we need to be paying attention to. What you were saying really highlights the systemic oppression that we are going through. And so I can't tell you exactly who said this quote, but they tell you the best way to keep a slave is not to let them know they're a slave. And so when you look at the school system and you see that you learn English, a native language that you hear every day, for 12 years. You learn math for 12 years. They don't teach you politics for 5 years. They don't teach you politics for 2 years. You get one course your senior year for one semester to teach you about the presidential election. So when you look at how they are training our children to enter into the political system, they don't teach you anything about it. If we were to start teaching our kids from age 5 of what it looks like on how to change their environment through politics, then they would know that they are going to be held accountable by the next generation. When you look at right now the voting population, the younger generation outnumbers all other voting populations, but they're not taught that their vote counts. They're not taught how to use their vote. They're not taught how to hold elected officials accountable, so they don't understand how powerful they really are. But the baby boomers do. And so while they are the smallest population, they vote at the highest rate. And so when we talk about we want change, we have the power to do that, but we don't understand it. Yet the older people who are in office, that's why you see a bunch of old white men continuing to get elected, because they understand exactly how this system works. And so when we talk about economics, when we as black people, as a younger black group growing up, aren't taught how to invest into politics, then again, we don't have the outcomes that we see in other communities, especially older generations. And so to talk about, again, the economic portion of it, I vividly remember working on a campaign where a person running for mayor said that they weren't going to come to Antioch. I live in Antioch. They weren't coming to Antioch because Antioch doesn't vote. And if Antioch doesn't vote, then why would you put your money in those areas? Because again, everything is about money. Don't ever get it twisted. The reason that racism is so prevalent is because they understand the black dollar. They understand that if they can control the black dollar and where the black dollar is being invested, then they can cut out a lot of the targeting that black people could use against the oppression. And so when they told me that he wasn't going to spend his money trying to get votes in an area that doesn't vote, it let me know that, again, black people, one, have to vote to show these elected officials that we're paying attention. Two, we have to start putting our money behind politicians so that they understand, hey, I can't run a full campaign without these black people's dollars. Without these black people dollars, then I won't get reelected. So we have to understand that the money is tied in with the vote, and that we have to understand the education of, like you said, school board. That's who makes decisions on what these kids are learning.
Yes.
So when we look at going to vote in November about President whoever, that's not going to affect what our child is not learning in school today.
Come on.
We have a 33% rate for third graders reading in Nashville right now, or across Tennessee. That's something that we can go do right now by going to school board meetings and saying we're going to hold you accountable every Tuesday you come to this meeting.
Come on now.
If we're going to wait until November Tuesday to stand up and make a stand, we never going to bring change. So we have to start understanding that the local politics, investing into local politics, holding local politicians accountable is more important, and I'll say it, is more important than paying attention to the November election, because while we want a great president, the president is a political figure. And sorry if I'm going long.
No.
The president is a political figurehead. America was based on checks and balances. And so when we talk about president did this, president did that, the president didn't do those things. Congress did those things. Congress decides where money is being spent. Congress decides if we're going to fund wars. So we can't look at the president and say it is President such and such who is doing this or not doing this. We need to look at Congress and say Congress is doing this. We need to look at state elected officials and say our state house representatives and state senators are doing this. We need to look at our city council members and say they're the ones that's doing this. We need to look at our school board and say these are the people that's doing this, and stop looking at single individuals and saying this one person did this thing. They did not.
There's so much richness there, Lelann. Thank you, first of all, for educating us about the roles of various individuals in government, but also about the importance, right, of understanding how these things are connected, about connecting the pieces of that process. And so I encourage the listening audience to continue to stay tuned in with us as we have this conversation, but to plug in with groups like what Lelann was talking about with Our Future Voters, plug into the work that we're doing with the Political Action Committee, with National Action Network, because we go through these steps of educating folks about what roles do what and who to hold accountable under what circumstances. Lelann, just to kind of piggyback on what you were saying about the separation of powers and what happens on the local level, I want to remind the audience who's here assembled and those who are listening about this particular statistic. So Tennessee ranks currently about 49th in the country in voter engagement. We rank somewhere between 48th and 47th in voter participation. And so when we talk about these numbers of individuals who are not going out to vote, who feel like they're disconnected from the process, we've also got to remember that part of the reason why we rank so low is because these numbers are intentional, right? It's not accidental that people are out of the process. There is something called voter suppression, which we'll talk about a little bit in just a moment. But some of the ways in which we can engage, and particularly those folks who have been pushed out of the process, say individuals who have had interaction with the criminal legal system, there are some 500,000 individuals in the state of Tennessee who do not currently vote because it is illegal for them to do so.
Come on now.
And if we don't do something about the criminal legal system, if we don't do something about the prison industrial complex and mass incarceration, if we don't re-enfranchise the votes and the powers of those individuals who have been pushed out of the system, then many of those folks who have the desire to vote won't have the ability. So let's talk a little bit about what that looks like on the state level. We're talking about what was happening with the priorities of our state. We're going to talk a little bit about what's been happening lately with the Tennessee 3 to bring people up to speed. And then we're going to talk a little bit of specifics around how people can plug in and engage. And so a couple of things that I wanted to raise awareness about. And so folks who are in this room probably already know this. But when I talk about the Tennessee 3, I'm speaking of 3 specific legislators, Justin Jones, Justin Pearson, and Gloria Johnson of Nashville, Memphis, and Knoxville, respectively. They staged a protest on the floor of the state legislature in the House in the aftermath of a mass shooting that happened at an elementary school here in Middle Tennessee called the Covenant School. And as a result of their actions, 2 of those lawmakers, Justin Jones and Justin Pearson, were expelled from the legislature and later were reinstated by the voters. Could you talk a little bit about how in this particular moment, the state of Tennessee seems to be targeting certain priorities, but ignoring others? What priorities should they be focused on? And what priorities, unfortunately, are they focused on from your perspective? Courtney Teasley, I'm going to start with you.
So for me, I feel like, when shout out to the Tennessee 3, we definitely know that, in those positions, you're fighting losing battles, right? Just because you're outnumbered. But, the point is shining a light on the systems that are oppressing the least of us. So when we look back to Bloody Sunday, and those things where in the past they were doing those things because they wanted to show the world, right? Yeah. They knew they were about to go down there and get beat. Right. They knew what was happening, but they needed that to happen. They wanted the world to be able to see because nobody cares when you can't see it, right? Come here, Emmett Till's mom, right? Who was like, hey, that's them down there. She was doing well. She lived in Chicago. They had a nice home, nice job. There was them Southern people's issues, right? Mm-hmm. So her son came down here and then that was all of our issues, right? And so she was able to see what occurred down here. And then it became important to her for her to show those things. So for me, when I hear what you're saying, I think that the point is to shine a light. Right, on the systems that are oppressing the least of us. I think that in Tennessee, their priorities are I saw a TikTok about a guy who was showing the people who had not voted in the last election for the governor, and that next year the governor was proposing all these bills. And he was just going through the bills, showing what they were proposing, and it was all things to make black people criminals, right, prior to the age of voting, right? I mean, these are subtle things that you don't even know, you don't even think about. It's like, oh well, if you're 16, you can get automatically transferred. Oh, if you're 14, accused, you can get a life sentence. Right. If you're accused of murder, then you gotta sit here. You know what I mean? It's 100% or knowing that 97% of people take pleas. So. It's like these things are strategic. It's, it's truly, we don't fight with flesh and blood. These systems are very evil and they didn't just come overnight. They think about these things. So when I think about the priorities, the priorities are to keep the minority from voting and to keep power with the majority, period.
So these are power decisions. Right? This is not just about power. When we start talking about issues related to race and class and gender and identity, while those issues might be touch points, that's not the whole issue. The issue is about power and money, who has it and who doesn't. Leland, to that end, we're having conversations. You mentioned Emmett Till earlier. We're talking about some of these historic figures and some of these historic events. But the reality is, right, in this particular political moment, people are not even able to talk about some of these issues because diversity, equity, inclusion is now being targeted. CRT, which is critical race theory, which is another topic that we'll be talking about here in just a moment, is being outlawed. And so there are efforts that are being made to try to silence the voices of dissent. What does that look like? And it shows up in your space. What can we do to combat it? How can we prepare ourselves and educate ourselves in anticipation of it? Because just the very idea that we're having this discussion today about the importance of the Black vote at the National Museum of African American Music that celebrates African American culture and contributions to music and the arts, all of these things could be on the chopping block.
So if you're fighting it today, it's too late, because they are so strategic in placing these laws on ballots uncontested because we aren't voting, and already in power, especially here in the state of Tennessee, that the stuff that we fight today is laws that they put in place years ago. So the things that we are doing today, we have to start looking into the future and start playing the games that they're playing. When you play chess, you don't make the move for right now. You make the move in the future.
Yeah, strategy.
And so when you look at strategies, and I'll give you an example. Right now, former President Donald Trump is the Supreme Court is going to make a decision on whether he can be on the ballot or not for presidency again.
Come on in here.
When you look at the Supreme Court, Donald Trump put 3 judges on there. There's 9 total judges. There's 6 Republicans. There's 3 Democrats. 3 of those Republicans was placed there by Donald Trump. So when you look at those
election year, I believe.
during the election year, so when you look at the things that Donald Trump has done in the past, and now getting into the position that he's about to be in, where the Supreme Court is going to make a decision on whether he can actually be on the ballot or not, and he put 3 of them into those seats, what do you think he's going to do?
He played a good chess game.
He played chess.
He played a good chess match, and while we were sitting around here, we're in like even and it's crazy because Lelann to me that's huge. Like that part right there, the chess, not checkers for me.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
when I think about the children and when you brought up the kids, when you were bringing up the kids, my first thought went to, okay, well here's chess, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're not going to tell you what the ultimate is yet. We're just going to start putting these rules in place, saying, oh no, well we can't talk about critical race theory. Oh no, well we're not going to be able to do this, and so you're not thinking anything about it because it was that one single thing. But then boom, when now your teacher is sending home a letter saying, hey, we about to read a story about a black author, we need your signature. What?
Exactly.
That's happening in Florida.
That's happening in Florida right now.
Exactly. And
It's a black author.
And you look at it as they're banning books. And right now, it may not seem that important to you. You might not have kids in classrooms. You might not think that it's that important for whatever reason. But when you see what the ultimate goal was that they have been sitting behind closed doors strategizing for years on end to go ahead and prevent let's say Black History Month from happening. What are we doing right now to preserve Black History Month from getting X'd off the books? Have we even thought about that? We haven't. But Black History Month is not something etched in stone that says we have to have it. Are we doing the same thing with women's rights? We thought that they were safe. But
In 50 years after Roe versus Wade.
50 years after Roe versus Wade, they was like, oh, okay, so y'all can have it for right now.
Right.
But we going to slowly
Take it away.
And we going to slowly position ourselves to make sure that when we do get this power,
Come on now.
we never give it back to you. That's what we have to start understanding, that they are playing the long game. And so when we win seats and we like, yes, we got 2 seats. We didn't pay attention to the fact that we won 2 state seats, but they were already planning for us to win those so that they can sneak in and start cutting Nashville into half. You can have these 2 seats in Nashville. Guess what? Y'all was planning to win 2 seats in Nashville. We was planning to cut the whole state into a whole different pot. So we have to start thinking that type of mindset where this is not about what's going on directly in front of us, but what is actually at the end of the street waiting for us, because we are trying to do something that has been done for years on end. They have been strategically oppressing us for years on end. We are not fighting a fair game. We cannot just play even anymore. We cannot play to be equal to one another because we are so far behind. To get equal to where we are in 2024 means that we are still behind, because by the time we reach up to 2024, it's going to be 2054.
Yeah.
By the time we get equal to 2054, it's going to be 2090.
Yeah.
So we have to start understanding that in order for us to truly make change and truly become equal, we have to start thinking in advance so that we can say, hey, we lost this battle today, but the war has become closer for our victory. That's where we have to start thinking about.
Larger strategy, larger strategic
strategy,
conversation.
for sure.
Thank you so much for that reminder. I'm gonna call an audible here, and I'm gonna ask our president for the Middle Tennessee National Action Network to come up and join us here on the panel. We've got just recently there were neo-Nazis that were marching on the Capitol building. This is not just an isolated incident, but it's happened in a number of different instances. Many people emboldened by the former president tipping his hat to white nationalism in an effort to push an agenda that is very dangerous potentially for Black people. And so I wanted to give our president an opportunity to talk a little bit about, like, from the perspective of the National Action Network and the work that we're doing to educate the masses, both about this history that has happened as the attacks continue on CRT and DEI, but also the ways in which we can find hope through collaboration and coordination. So if you could talk a little bit about the history of the National Action Network, what we're doing in this moment to raise awareness about this rising tide against fascism, efforts to try to push back against it, and what we can do to provide hope and safety for our people.
So, hello everybody, and excuse my voice, but what happened here in Nashville? If you pay attention to those Nazis, them coming down here, and then they got your attention. But if you ignore it and act like it didn't exist, then you'll be okay. So what we do at the National Action Network, we do education. We educate our public, we educate the community about what's going on. We want for you all to always be informed. We want you to be informed on voting, on our education in schools. We want you to know what your rights are when it comes to the law. We want you to know everything you have to know, because what happened there on the Capitol and marching downtown with the Nazis and they covering their face. See, only cowards cover their face, because if they was really serious and wanted people to know who they are, their face wasn't covered. But I want you to always know, it might be that person you sit next to. It might be that person that live next door to you. It might be that judge that you sitting and going to his courtroom. See, you never know. When you have your face covered, then you can do whatever, and you never know what's going on. So you always have to be aware of everything. And the only way you're going to be aware of what's going on is being educated. I had the privilege and the honor to be in our attorney, Courtney Teasley, first class. See, I love being number one. And we were in her first class, but education, she educated us on facts, the real. Have anybody in here, just by show of hand, have you all heard of Khalif Brower? Anybody read that story? Look at the documentary? Do you all know what happened to that young man?
Please tell us.
Because he didn't have anybody to stand up for him. He had to go in that jail, and he had to fight this fight alone. Nobody helped him. But we had all of these people was talking about it after he died. You had Jay-Z, you had all of these famous people. Everybody wanted to talk about it after he died.
Right, and he had never been convicted of a crime.
He never.
He was in jail in New York, correct?
He was in jail.
He was on probation.
On probation.
He was on probation for a case that a child did at 16, and he was joyriding in a bread box, a bread truck. But because of that, because of where he came from and who he was, it was easy for them to put a record on him.
Yep.
Because his family, his community, and the people didn't understand what their rights were. So if we know what our rights are, we won't ever have another Khalif Brower. We won't have that.
Can I piggyback in there?
Please, absolutely.
So, and Ms. Cheryl, I appreciate that, because it's and a portion of that is in the damn advocate training is making sure that we know what our rights, our full rights as citizens are. A lot of times when we hear what my rights are, you think about only with the police, right? So we're up here talking about your rights. Like, you have a right to vote, right? You got a right to court watch, right? You have a right to you do have all these criminal rights and stuff, but you got other rights as citizen, as a citizen that, like Lelann was saying, that we never get taught though. Right. We don't get taught, and that's a chess move, right? A lot of times, and that's what I wanted wanted to say in your piece at first, which was, I want to acknowledge that I know it's hard to stay up on these things, right? Especially when you were from what I call the damn community, disproportionately affected marginalized minority, otherwise known as the hood. When you dealing with all the life stuff, you working 40 hours a week, you just trying to damn it get by. I got to get these kids, got to do this. It's a lot. And so I want to acknowledge that is a lot to stay up on these things, but that is why you're in community here. That's why you are knowing how to go to these pages and you're staying with people that you trust and you're watching and seeing, all right, I know this election is coming up. I don't want to be just voting just because I saw somebody's name out here. I don't want to just be doing this. You got to be thinking about that child, right? You got to be thinking about the next generation.
Future, right.
So future, when Leland's talking about civics, all right, civics is not taught in school. We don't even know our rights as citizens. Criminal justice literacy. Boom. What about that? We were never taught our rights as in relation to the criminal justice system, but we're told ignorance of the law, right? Ignorance of the law, and ain't no excuse for breaking the law, though. Right. You should have just known it, right? And so, as a community, and bringing it back to these neo-Nazis and whatnot, that's just that's a power. Like, listen, I don't give any credibility to that shit. You want to run around with a hood on your head? That's your business. You know what I mean? You want to walk around like, oh, okay, continuing on with what I'm doing here because you're a coward. You're trying to intimidate somebody. You ain't finna come over here and do none of that. You better keep walking peacefully like you're doing, right? And just we're minding our own black-owned business on that. Okay? We don't look at other stuff. We don't have that kind of time. What we have to be focusing on is these types of spaces, and and not having to come here though. Knowing where to go. So you follow National Action Network. You follow Lelann, Our Future Voters. You are following, you can follow me. You can follow different MF, and you can follow Timothy Hughes, who sends me stuff all the time. But you get to follow these people. You find people that you trust in your community to give it to you real.
That's right.
Right? And let me give you this little piece, this last piece. Lelann, and so I'm not the political person. I have to go ahead and I practice law. I was a lawyer. I was focusing on law. I then got ignited after I saw all this shit going on in courts. I saw it. It was happening, and the judges, and they were coming out here, and elections only came up every 8 years. And I saw them out here lying. They were out here, out of their mouth. I've literally practiced in front of you multiple times. You have been talking about, oh, yes, I do, blah, blah. Like, what? This is a blatant lie. And then I got ignited as I said, hold on. I know my rights as a citizen. I'm about to get your butt up out of here because you're a liar. Let me go tell people what you really been doing. Guess what? Here's information that y'all don't even look at. They bet on us not looking at public information. Mm-hmm. It's in our faces, right? They'll play in our face. And I'm a citizen, I can file a motion. I can file an open records request as a citizen and say, you know what? Send me your personnel files. I need to see what you've been up to. Because you work for me.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. And you can do that.
That's simple. And that is what we're trying to empower people to understand is that I don't let that neo-Nazi, you don't let this stuff intimidate you. No. Remember what your power is as a citizen. And if you want to do something about it, reach out to Nan. Hey, Nan, reach out to Our Future Voters. Reach out to me. Say, hey, you know what? I'm angry. Now, what can I do? Right?
Yep.
That's the first step.
A powerful call.
What can you do?
Yes.
I would
What
say
do we do?
Even the key piece to both of you all are saying is that education part, because when you know what your rights are, when you know the facts and truth, when you know where you come from, stuff like that won't bother you.
That's right.
So when I see neo-Nazis marching down the street in Nashville, it doesn't bother me because the ignorance that they have doesn't affect my life.
That's right.
If they come to my house and do that, that's a different story. Because then I still know my rights and I know I can defend myself and my property. But for you to march down town Nashville, you have every right to do so. I'm not going to infringe upon your right to do that. You look ignorant if you ask me, but that is the choice that you decide to make. And so you express your rights the same way that I'm going to go out here and I'm going to express my rights. So I don't get offended by it, but I am knowledgeable enough to know that what you are trying to spread here is what I'm fighting against. And so I have to do 3-4 times as much work to combat against it. And that starts again with the education, especially with our youth. So when we go back to what you were saying is about local politics, holding the flame to our school board on why today, as a 34-year-old man, I still remember A squared plus B squared equals C squared. And I ain't never used that.
Never used that.
Right.
But you mean to tell me you have never taught me how to balance a budget? You never taught me about my rights as a citizen. You never taught me how to go and speak up for myself at a school board meeting or at a city council meeting. You never took me to City Hall to meet my mayor and hold him accountable. You never did any of these things.
That's right.
But you continue to teach me these old mathematic ways, all these old school ways. And so we need to go to the school board. When I go to the school board, you know what they tell me? Well, they don't have time because there's a structure from the state. So that means, okay, so not only do I need to hold the school board accountable, I also got to vote and hold the state accountable. Yes. And so it is very strategic that the state with the power controls what's going on the education system. So it's a fight on all levels at all times for us to have to come back. And so, yes, it is very tiresome. However, it's tiresome in a way that you can either fight against it, or you could be a problem within it. And they're going to use you because you're going to make the money. We pay taxes. You're going to make them money.
And clear, you're a problem if you do nothing.
Oh, you are definitely a problem
if you do nothing. That is problematic.
So how many people in here, I just want to know, just by the raise of hand, how many people in here vote?
I voted today.
So when you vote, do you know who you voted for?
Right.
Have you ever went into, if you voted for the judges that's running, have you ever been in that courtroom to see who that judge really is or what they really do? Have you ever went to the schools to see, just in the district, we got District 1 that have 4 people that's running for that seat, that lives in that district, but every school in that district is failing schools. Right. Do we ever go and check and find out what are they doing? No, we vote on them and then we let them go.
Yes.
We have to hold these people accountable because if we don't hold them accountable, they're going to keep getting these seats and they're going to keep throwing our kids in jail. They're going to keep on failing our kids out of school. And then they got all these police officers now that's in the schools, but they mainly in our school. What they going to do with our children? Our children don't know what their rights are. So that's what we do. We make sure that our kids and their kids and your kids and my kids know what their rights are. So when they say, I want to search your book bag, I want to have a conversation, you say, call my mother, call my attorney. As a child, they can say that, because they don't have a right to do that. So we have to know what our rights are. We have to be educated on what's going on and hold these people accountable.
Thank you all, panelists, for all that you shared thus far. Can we give a round of applause for our panel, please? Thank you all. I know the time is short, but I wanted to give our panelists an opportunity to be able to give some remarks about what's coming, what next issues are, what's happening next with the National Action Network. And I also wanted to allow for some time for there to be some question and answer with the audience so we can get some perspectives from those who are here assembled and those who might be gathered online. So if you have not yet submitted your question, if you have a question, please raise your hand, get a piece of paper and write it down if you're here in the group. Or if you want to share out the social media, or if you're participating on social media, comment in the chat. We're going to try to see if we can get a couple of those questions on air with our panelists as well. While that's working, I did have a couple questions. Lelann and I were having a conversation in addition to the work that he does around politics and civic engagement. He's been my guru for all things AI. And so I wanted to give just a brief moment in conversation and what we're talking about with regard to what's next for civic engagement. I know we're talking about the importance of voting in the upcoming elections. Of course, the primaries are happening. We're currently actually doing early voting up until the 27th of February, and then March the 5th is the primary election. Then there are also elections in August and then in November. But there's so much that's happening on the technological front. Lelann, could you talk a little bit about how it is that AI, social media, technology, many of the things that we're talking about as it pertains to technology are influencing the civic engagement space, and what it is that we can be doing to prepare for this next horizon that is coming so that we are well equipped to be able to function in that world?
Yes, so the future of pretty much everything is going to be AI. We as Black people have always been geniuses that have pushed innovation, creation forward.
Yeah.
When you think of George Washington Carver, all the great things that he's done. When you think about Black inventors, they don't get the same space and opportunities. And so when we raise our children, we have to make sure that we are teaching them that you can be anything.
Yeah.
Not just see them as basketball players, not just see them as politicians, right. Not just see them as doctors. Don't just focus on the money. Don't just focus on what society has said is a great career, because we are getting these people into these spaces, but again, we have to be futuristic in how we fight this fight. And so we have to understand that it's not just about being Black in current spaces.
That's right.
We have to be Black in future spaces. So AI, this is going to be something that if Black people don't get into in the beginning stages, AI is going to continue to generate white faces.
That's right.
It's going to continue to generate white populated information. And we have to be in those rooms in order to prevent that from happening. When we talk about diversity, equity and inclusion, it's about us getting into these rooms so that we can say, hey, we've hired nothing but white people. When are we going to hire Black people?
Come on now.
Well, when we look at technology, that same thing has to happen. Because when the information that you get from AI is not because this computer had some great idea, it's because the person that programmed it to give that great idea. And so if we aren't the ones in those rooms with those programs, coding and teaching them about Black history, Black opportunities, being able to say, hey, this is what the actual Martin Luther King looks like. This is what the actual Jesus Christ looked like. If we are not going to be in these spaces to correct, then we won't be able to do anything but wait 5-10 years and then complain about why Black people aren't being represented. One thing I want to point out real quick is Pivot Tech. It's a Black company that teaches about technology, about coding, preparing the Black communities to be in these spaces. Our future is going to be technology based. It's going to be AI based. It's going to be robotics. One thing that TSU is pushing is robotics. We have to make sure that we are shaping our kids in the mindset of don't look at what is the current great opportunity. Think about what the future can hold for you. And so that's where I would say making sure that we, when it comes to AI, that's great. ChatGPT, that's already here. ChatGPT was getting built in 2000. You can go on the internet right now and see that Israel, there was a huge conference in Israel back in 2000s when they actually started training and building ChatGPT, robots that can think for itself and answer questions. We have to start thinking ahead of time because they are paying big money for people to sit in rooms and create our future as we sit in these rooms and complain about what's going on today.
That's real. Can I piggyback on that?
Absolutely.
And so, I think you're asking last words.
No. I'm going to give space for that as well.
So, for me, like the only thing I can think about is the school to prison pipeline. All I can think about is when we talk about chess, not checkers, all I can think about is how we don't even have a choice, but our children are being taught, right, the exact same way people in prison live, right? When to eat, when to sleep, when to shut up, when to walk, what to think, what to do, what not to do. They are not encouraged to be creative. And so if as parents, we don't push that, if we don't help them, right, if we don't introduce and let them live in their creativity and we push them to make certain kind of money, make them do these certain types of jobs, not looking into these different things, right, which they're naturally good at. They already know how to use it. Children already know how to use it. ChatGPT, first of all, is a lifesaver in business. I use it all the time. But to look at it in elections and how it's going to come, I know Gen Z, I know these children can take it and go way further. But you got to push them into it, right? Because other than that, they're never going to see it in school because they're not going to be taught anything about being creative. So like Lelann, I mean, that to me, that stood out. Like when you were just talking about that AI, it really stood out to me. It's like, hey, that's creative. That's a lucrative way to make money. They said the digital product industry is $3 billion right now. In the next 3 to 5 years, it will be $13 billion. I'm a business coach now. I help women build businesses that disrupt systems of oppression. So for me, it's about getting money. The more money that you have, the more money I can give to the communities and the people that need it. The more proactive things, initiatives we can do, the more elections I can run, the more things that we can do for our community. But we got to be thinking outside the box. I'm not going to do that just being a lawyer.
Right.
I'm not going to do that just being a whatever. I have to think bigger. So I appreciate that.
Vision and possibility.
So what I want to say is, because we always say we want to go to their table so they can hear what we have to say. We always say they're not teaching our children Black history in their schools. We don't need them. They tell their own story. We need to create our own story. We have to get our own. We have a young man sitting right here with us that knows about IT, knows about all of that. Let's start our school and get our children and let them start being a part of that.
Your clubs, everything, organizations,
but with Black history. They're not going to ever tell the Black history how it was. That's because we have to tell it. Because we went through it. Our ancestors know what we went through. So we have to build our own platform, let them come to our tables and have a conversation. We don't want to sit at their tables anymore. Because when we sit at their tables, then they have the narrator. They do what they want to do. They say what they want to say. And we have to stop. We have to stop that.
Thank you all so much, first of all, for reminding us about the power that we have, both in our platforms and the ways in which we tell our own stories, about the power that we have to be able to equip our communities and to come together collaboratively, to work together, the work that's happening with the National Action Network. And of course, this is an example, right? We're here at the National Museum of African American Music, a touchstone of all of the creative innovation in the arts and music. And so it's important that we have these conversations about empowerment and about the power that we have as a community to work collaboratively and to elect the kinds of people who can represent our community's interests. I'm going to ask a couple of questions of the audience members. I got a couple things that have come to me from some audience questions, and so we're going to pose those to the panelists, and then we're going to go ahead and wrap up our discussion for the day. But I just want to thank you once again for the panelists who are here, for Reverend Howard Jones, who joined us earlier, and for the panelists who are participating in this conversation. Thank you all so much. You still have an opportunity to be able to get a question to me if you have one, but I'm going to go with a couple of the questions that we have here. So the question that was asked was, how do we follow y'all? How do we keep in touch, first of all, with you and your platforms? And what is it that you're doing to talk about the issue of Black joy and celebration and how we stay shored up for the work? How do you keep going in the work when it gets difficult?
Ooh, that's a good
That's an excellent question. First, you can follow Our Future Voters on Instagram at Our Future Voters, all one word. Again, I offer classroom curriculum, I offer community outreach. As far as how to keep going through the difficult times, do not get burnt out. That is one thing that I can tell you, because this fight has been going on before you was born. It's going to keep going until after you die.
Yes.
Unfortunately, racism is not going to end. And this could go off into a long term, but I'm going to keep it short. There is political theory that believes that racism will never end. So if you are going to fight this battle to end racism, let me tell you, you can never change the mindset of someone else. You can lead a horse to the water, but you can't make him drink it. So you have to take it upon yourself to understand that I'm going to fight the battles I choose. The ones that I can win, I will win. And the ones that are too tiresome, I'm going to walk away from. Because you aren't going to win every racist battle. You aren't going to win every Black battle. You aren't going to win every battle in life. You have to understand that your mental capacity is the most essential thing that you can protect in this fight. And so make sure that when you start to feel burnt out, Take a vacation. I live vicariously through Courtney. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, I ain't want to break it like this, but
I hate y'all.
this woman takes a vacation once a month.
I know.
And I love it for her. I love it for her because she reminds me that, hey, Leland,
Time to
you
break.
can bust your butt as hard as you want and still go have as much fun as you want.
You can't pour from an empty vessel there, Jaleel.
So,
Important reminder.
thank you, Courtney.
hate you so much.
Thank you for letting me live vicariously through
So,
you.
you're a mess. Okay. I love that. Well, you can follow me. If you want to follow me personally, you can follow me at the Courtney Teasley. But to follow MFN, where we are doing all of our disrupting and all of our proactive work, go to mfn.mfn. It is EMEFFEN.M. FN. And yes, it is exactly what you think it is. Yes, it is. Yes,
It is that.
because we come to disrupt that statistic where Black Americans are 5 times more incarcerated than the 60% white majority, yet we only make up less than 14% of the U.S. How we get to be 5 times more incarcerated? 12 states. We are over half of the population. So for me, yes, I want to disrupt those MFN statistics. Okay, we speak AAVE, African American Vernacular English over here, with no code switching. So you can follow me there. Now, how do I continue and how do I feel like people should continue doing the work? I got 2 things. I feel like you got to work in your strengths and you got to have a team.
Yes,
Right? You got to work in your strengths. First of all, in your strengths, you everybody can't do everything. That's not your strength, right? Maybe you over here, if I'm talking loud and I'm doing this, well, that's my strength, right? Maybe this is where I am good. I'm an activator. These are my things. What are you good at, right? Where do you just naturally do work and there's a place for you, right? There is a place and there's something that you can do and you gotta have a team. You cannot do this work by yourself. It is too tiresome. It is too hard. It's just too much. So yes, I take a vacation all the time because the more I pour into me, the more I can pour into others. So that's how I keep the work going. And I think that we all should do the same.
So, when she said you have to have a team,
Come on.
you have to have a team. I will never burn out. You know why? Because I utilize my team. And you know what I do? I go to everybody's events, everybody functions, and I sit back and I watch people. And I see what they're doing. And I see how they're passionate of what they're doing. And then I tap them on the shoulder, hey, I'd like to have a conversation with you. I want to know what it is you like because I need you on my team. That's how I get my team built. You know why? Because I'm not going to ever be burnt out because I'm an organizer.
Come on.
And what an organizer is what we do right here.
Yes.
And that's what I'm good at. I'm not good with AI. I'm not good with cameras. I'm not good with, but I have a team.
Come on, Miss Cheryl.
I got my team back there, Stacy Lane. I got my team right here, Stacy Johnson. I have my team back there, Angela. I have my team right here. All of them. Everybody that I come in contact with. And we do work together. That's my team. That's what I do. That's what we do here. And you can reach us if you go to our website, and it is middletennessee.org, and you can go to all of our sites. We on Facebook, we on Instagram, we on all of it. National Action Network, and follow us. We have where you can sign up, become a member. We have a young lady here right now, just moved to Nashville. She want to know where she needs to go and sign up to register to vote.
Yes.
You know why? How they get them palm cards and say, well, these are all the people that's sponsoring me? Well, that's good because half of Nashville are new people. They don't know who you are. So let's do our job and let's go get some real people in these seats.
Thank you so much.
Great job, Timothy Hughes. First off, let's start by thanking the National Museum of African American Music for hosting this Black History Month celebration. Thank you to the Middle Tennessee National Action Network and TUG Youth Development for partnering with I.M.B. Studios to make this happen. Thank you to Senior Pastor Howard Jones of Fairfield Baptist Church, owner of Kingdom Cafe and Grill, Mrs. Courtney Teasley of the Courtney Teasley Law Firm and MFM. Also to Mr. Lelann Evans of Our Future Voters for bringing such a high-level conversation about some of the most pivotal issues that's going on in and around Nashville. Thank you all. And for those of you that are still with us, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that notification bell, so every time we come on, you will be the first to know about it. We are closing out from I.M.B. Studios in Nashville, Tennessee. Thank you all for such a wonderful event.